Chapter 320. Commander? When Kana raised her voice in surprise, Kishir revealed himself from the darkness, smiling. What were you talking about? After Kishir appeared, Lorna seemed even more intimidated than when she had faced Kana. Having just heard from Kana about the events that had just transpired, Kishir glanced down at Pethumet, who was still scratching at the iron bonds, and then turned his eyes toward Lorna. Lorna Beat, do you have anything to add to what Kana said? No, I'm sorry. It seems you have grown comfortable with yesterday's success, but I would like you to keep in mind that it is not yet time for such comfort. You still need to learn to discern what you should and shouldn't say to someone who has just regained their footing. I was rash. Lorna merely bowed her head, offering no excuse. Seeing her trembling fingertips and not daring to look directly at Kishir's face, Yidhir began to wonder how Kishir had treated the mages before to prompt such a reaction. Go out and tell Miklan about this. Yes. It was only then that Lorna seemed to breathe again, quickly raising from her seat and leaving. Kishir did not take his eyes off her until she was completely out of sight. Only after hearing the distant sound of a door closing did he finally turn to face Kana and Yidhir. Anyway, about the emotions of a monster, strange information. Have you ever read about this before, Kana? No, this is my first time hearing of it too. It's not so much emotions, but more a feeling that's hard to explain. Kana explained that the information read from Pethumet felt more like a powerful instinct, although it was too brief to say definitively. Yidhir reached out slowly towards Pethumet, who was hanging on to the iron bars. The creature tilted its body to follow Yidhir's hand and then recoiled, its short legs frailing. Yidhir found the scene pathetically reminiscent of the massive Pethumet. Kishir also slightly furrowed his brow at the sight. It might be dangerous, so come back. It's fine, I'm sure. As Kana said, this monster doesn't seem to harbor any hostility towards me. What should we do? At Kana's perplexed question, Kishir fell into a momentary silence. He seemed uncertain whether to immediately eliminate the unknown element or to verify it before moving on. Yidhir, what do you think from the subject's standpoint? Yidhir opened his mouth and then closed it again. Although he had taken aback by the expression of sensing kinship, he realized that there was those in the world who could command monsters and that more would emerge in the future. What would be so different about this? Thinking of it as an extra ability, he felt surprisingly eager. What if I could use the power that this Pethumet has, like those awakeners who handle monsters? Yidhir recalled the ability of Pethumet that Lorna had mentioned, absorption of strength and discharge. At that moment, a thought suddenly struck his mind, sending shock waves through his consciousness. Perhaps studying this monster's ability could help with Kishir's vessel problem. Even if not, maybe it could help find answers related to what happened to me after absorbing the power of the red stone. It was merely a hypothetical scenario. However, Yidhir was engulfed by an astonishment so distinct that it made him wonder why he hadn't thought of it just moments before. It was as though a new path, hitherto unseen, had revealed itself before his eyes. Looking down at the little Pethumet that squirmed and wriggled along his fingertips, Yidhir opened his mouth again. If you ask for my opinion, I believe it might be wise to ascertain the correlation between the transformation that occurred to me and this monster before making a decision on its disposal. Wouldn't it be better than leaving an uncertain element unattended? Of course, I mean if there's a way to verify it without risk. Without risk? Kishir, who had quietly responded, turned his gaze towards the gauge holding the pedometer. I agree with not leaving uncertainties, but we will have to think about it a bit more. They left behind the pedometer, crying out with small squeaks, and exited the storeroom. Yudhir sensed the inquisitive glances of his comrades but feigned ignorance. Kana felt the same. Afterward, Kishir gathered the rarely assembled members to inform them that he would be leaving tomorrow and that there were changes in the personnel staying in the Great Serene Forest. As you all know, the situation has changed somewhat from what we originally anticipated. Therefore, I will inform you again who will leave for Tenu with me tomorrow and who will stay here to assist in the search and subjugation. Originally, including Gakane and the Eldor siblings, several from the second dispatch were to stay here, while Kana and Emon were to leave for Tenu with Kishir and Yudhir. However, Kishir removed Ever and Finn Eldor from the list, inserting Kana instead. Kana warned will stay here to gather information about the village and then come to Tenu. Everbeck will accompany us to Tenu and lead those there. Understood. To Yudhir, the changes in personnel seem to suggest a shift in focus towards tracking the Star of Nagran and investigating the magic spring rather than the monster subjugation. The members followed their surprise, nodding in agreement without objecting to Kishir's decision. Kishir ordered everyone except Deputy Commander Ever, Kana, and Gakane to return to the base. Upon arriving there slightly later than the others, Yudhir saw a familiar face. Enon? He thought he wouldn't see Enon among the members who had arrived first and that he would have to go to Tenu to meet him, but he was wrong. The man who had been reluctant to leave the capital sat with a few Paleta knights, his face as cold as ice. Upon seeing Yudhir, he immediately scowled. You, what on earth happened to you? Enon, who had risen from his seat, pulled Yudhir upstairs before anyone could say a word. This is madness. This is what you call healing? Where's Lusan? Lead the way. Priest Lusan is lying down right now. He's not feeling well. What? Why? Clearly, he hadn't received a detailed explanation of what had happened that day. As Yudhir explained what had occurred to Lusan, Enon's expression grew even grimmer. It's one thing after another. Damn it all. I heard the commander called you, but I really didn't expect you to come all the way here. What was I supposed to do when those night bastards rushed in, saying you were all dying, and threw me into a carriage without warning? Hearing the details, it was clear that Enon had not come with the second dispatched unit. Yet, if he had arrived almost at the same time, one could only imagine how hastily he must have rushed. Enon, seemingly bearing great resentment towards Kishir, headed towards Lusan's room, constantly muttering curses under his breath. Sir Enon, when did you arrive? Lusan, who had been lying down with a pale face, jumped up in a surprise. But Enon held his shoulder down. After examining Lusan's condition, he clicked his tongue and pulled out a few medicinal pills from his pocket to hand over. He really did a number on you. Take all of these and don't use your divine power for a few days. I'm sorry. As a priest, I have lost face. It's fine. Just rest. After taking the medicine Enon provided, Lusan fell asleep quickly. They settled down in a spot where they could keep an eye on the sleeping Lusan. Yidhir felt Enon's eyes scanning his face, eyes, and even inside, and opened his mouth. Enon, remember the thread you gave me? Why? It was severed this time. I couldn't figure out its meaning, so I wanted to ask. Enon was silent for a moment. When he opened his mouth again, his eyes had sharpened. As I told you before, it was a kind of amulet. It absorbed and dispersed any shock that would shake the holder's power and soul. So, if it's broken, it means you endured a shock of that magnitude. It seemed to imply that he had almost died from this incident, but part of it was not easily accepted. It didn't feel that dangerous. It didn't feel that dangerous? I heard some of it on the way here, but you must really be insane. Enon, who had coldly deemed Yidhir mad, exhaled as he stared into space, seemingly trying not to lose his temper. I told you before, no matter how good your innate talent is, there are limits. If you have come this far, is it your wish to die young? Didn't I tell you I still don't believe it? Do you think it matters whether you believe it or not right now? Enon, suddenly angry, took a few deep breaths again. How on earth did I get entangled with someone like you? It's driving me crazy. I'm sorry about that. If you were truly sorry, you wouldn't have done something like this.